requested that something be done to welcome our veterans home. It took about 4 years to come together. Everyone giving their input. We went to our tribal elders and our veterans and other groups to get input as this is being created. And most important, the creator, grandfather, grandmothers who are here with us all the time. They added their input. And there was times which I received some images by them. And those images sometimes came years before the design of this monument started. So it had been started way before the tribal council even acknowledged that we needed something. So as the designs developed, it was taken out to our communities, and eventually what you see here today came about. And it wasn't the action of just one person, it was the community. Because this is coming from the community to welcome home our veterans. You don't see guided missiles or warships or tanks or other armaments here, because this is our community that we're welcoming back our veterans. So the images that you see here are coming from our community. On the outside of the Eagle Circle here, you'll see specific landmarks that represent our community and representation of our culture. On the very back side where you see the coyote and those small pups and that circle with the design in that circle represents our story, who we are as a people. And it's not complete yet as a circle. And those pups that are there, those are the ones that still will have stories to tell. Because we're not through here as a people. We're going to be living here for a long time. And the images on the back again reflect why we go to battle. We protect our resources when we go to the Washington, D.C. or Helena or other places to talk about our resources. So we're always constantly, in a sense, in conflict in some way or another. And it's up to all of us to do our part, do what we can. And there's several key people that were on that committee. Ruth Sweeney, for instance, is one of the key people that was helping organize a lot of different things. And she is the one that maintains and tries to maintain the list of names that are to be added or that are here now. Without her great contribution, those names might not be here. So the old Ruth and our tribe, those that retain the names, we owe them a great debt. The first dedication here was done in 2010. No names have been added since then, so we now have another, 98 names that have been added. And the company that added those names are here in Polson, or out of Polson, and they did really a tremendous job in in putting those names. It's D&D Customs Sign Pro and Griff Davis and his daughter Kiana were here a few weeks ago putting the names on. You probably seen a picture in the Charcusta with Kiana taking the stenciling off the monuments so the names could be added. They did a really great job. Cold Springs Granite Company back in Minnesota mined these stones and did the initial work. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do the design of the monument. But I really appreciate the community, the support and love that went into this. You see the two figures on the either side of the eagle. Those represent our people, our ancestors, the men, the women, who both fought to be here. They're both equal stature. With the woman with the eagle feather and the cradle board off to her side speaks of her major role, although many times our women went to battle right alongside the men. When the men were away, they were left there to protect the families. And we've had many women that have served in our military, many women that went to the coast and worked on the battleships in the war time to help. And I appreciate Rosie the Riveters.
Yeah.
So I want to maybe not be too long here because it is warm. And I'd like to ask that Lieutenant Colonel Ed Saunders come forward. He's going to mention Regina McIntyre, early U.S. World War II Army Corps nurse.
Good morning. I'm Ed Saunders, career combat soldier and veteran of the Persian Gulf War. My wife Charlene and I, Charlene's over here, are very honored and proud to accept the invitation of the Confederated Salish Kootenai to attend this remarkable ceremony this morning. 100 years ago, the United States entered World War I. It wasn't called World War I then, it was called the Great War, or the War to End All Wars. Sadly, it was great in death, blood, and sorrow, and it didn't end all wars. America's women served tall and proud with great honor and great courage in that war, mostly as nurses in the United States Army Nurse Corps. At the beginning of World War I, the Army only had 400 nurses. At the end of World War I, they had over 21,000 nurses. Years ago, I began researching these women. Why? Because in the armed forces of the United States, we leave no serviceman or woman behind in body, in memory, in spirit. These women will not be forgotten on my watch. That's why I do this. I found about 200 women served in World War I from Montana. About almost half of them overseas in France in harm's way. One name caught my attention, Regina McIntyre, because she lived up in this area, and her record of service in the Montana State Library shows that she served as a nurse in the U.S. Army Nurse Corps. She went overseas in harm's way before she was allowed to vote in federal elections, before she received the same pay as men, before she received the same rank, honor, privilege, and the accolades due her. And so did all of the other women. They crossed the Atlantic Ocean on ship. They didn't fly across, did they? They crossed when the Germans declared unrestricted submarine warfare. Once they left New York Harbor, they were a submarine target. 2 ships were blown out of the water. Luckily, the nurses were not on them. Regina McIntyre served in 4 different hospitals in France, many in the harm's way. One of the hospitals, in the history of that hospital, they treated over 62,000 American wounded. Regina McIntyre was one of those nurses. After the war ended, she volunteered to stay. All of those women were dual volunteers. They volunteered to be in the Army Nurse Corps, and they volunteered then to go overseas in France. They were never drafted or forced to go overseas. Their service remained strong and proud with great heroism. 3 of those nurses received the Distinguished Service Cross, which is 1 level below the United States Medal of Honor. After the World War, Regina McIntyre returned to her homeland. She married. Her tribal affiliation is through her mother. When I found her record, something told me to follow her lead. And I followed her lead to the Confederated Salish Kootenai. I put all of this together, forwarded to the tribe, and said, "Can you verify this?" And the tribe said, "Yes, we can." Given that, I'm honored and very proud to say that her name on this wall represents the first known and proven Native American woman who served as a veteran in the United States Armed Forces of World War I. And she was from here. Sadly, she died a young woman and is buried in this very honored soil here. The tribe and I and all America can be proud of these women because service to our country, service to liberty and freedom knows no gender, it knows no ethnicity, it knows no religion, it knows no race or color. That is the immense honor that we have in America and that you have here. Again, Charlene and I are very honored and proud to come here and to see Regina McIntyre, Early's name, added to the wall. Thank you very much.
I'd like Bernie Asher to come forward. I called him Bernie Sanders earlier, but he's going to come forward in recognition of Frank J. Ducharme, USA Korea.
As Lieutenant Colonel Saunders said, that one of the promises that we make to our men and women who serve this country is that we will not leave them behind. I think, at least for me as a veteran, that was the most valuable promise I ever got. I served in Vietnam, and I often thought, does anybody think about me over here? Do they really care besides my family and stuff? I know I used to think about everybody I knew over there, but anyway, I always kept that connection deep in my heart. Another family on the reservation here recently found out that after 65 years, their brother, Frank Gerard Ducharme, has been found in Korea. It's a long process to make the official statement about that, but his dog tags and remains were found in 2015. The family was notified in late 2015 that they would like some DNA samples to submit. They have done that in the preliminary round. In the next round, I believe Carrie informed me that they'll be doing the maternal side of the family here in the next couple of weeks to verify the remains. Once that is done, Frank will be coming home after 65 years. It's a promise that was kept, the promise made, and I know, talking to Carrie and Denise last week and Carrie before that, that this is really, and I think everybody here understands, how monumental this is to have a soldier, regardless of race, religion, family connection. He served us all. Some of us weren't even born, some of us were little kids, some of us had people served in Korea, and as a fellow soldier, it just was like a brother is coming home. It's not like a familial brother, but military people understand brotherhood. Frank was 19 years old when he was killed during what they call the first day of the spring offensive by the North Korea, or I don't think they were called North Korean back then, but the Korean and Chinese communist troops. The first night, he was posted on what they call a forward camp. It's kind of one of the, ahead of the main. They had a 14-mile defensive line. On the other side, about 3 or 4 or 5 miles, was about 100,000 communist soldiers. Frank was at a forward base, kind of like bait on a fishing hook, if you will, to entice the people to engage. Unfortunately, they did. Most of his 800-person forward battalion, including Frank, were killed and went missing that day. The family found out, was notified soon after that. A year later, he was officially declared missing in action. 2 years after that, they received another notice about the end of the Korean War that he was still missing in action, but that he would not be left behind. Okay, it took 65 years. Time is kind of elastic sometimes. Oh, that was a long time. When I look back at 65, I think, where did that time go? I know that maybe the family's feeling some of that time warp now, because that's bringing Frank's memory and all those kind of emotions back into their hearts, into their family. And we feel some of that as a fellow soldier. I feel some of that. Once this final round of DNA is tested and verified, then Frank's body will be released and he will be coming home. And I think Indian people, more than anybody, at least in my perception, understand what home is. Home is somewhere that is always there. This is Frank's home all around here. This is his family's home. You know, Missoula may be in his territory or whatever, but when you got a home to come home to, like I do at Fort Belknap, that's almost just as important to this thing about we'll never leave you at war and forget you. And anyway, I want to recognize Carrie over here. Say hi, Carrie. And I see she had other family members, and I think we should, not only for her, but for all veterans, just give the effort a little round of applause, and that Frank will be finally coming home after 65 years. And I would just like to close with got to mention the Vietnam War. On Wednesday, the family of Roger Marvin Corville was honored by the state of Montana with a recognition and honoring medal for his service in Vietnam. Marvin was killed shortly after going to Vietnam in 1969, and was very, I think the family felt very good receiving that from the state. It's available to all folks who have lost loved ones in any of our wars. You just have to contact the state VA at Fort Harris. And then one other thing before I close, just a couple months ago, a fellow from Charlotte named Dan Gallagher passed away. Dan succumbed to the effects of Agent Orange and heart disease. Dan was out of Missoula, Post 109. He started, I believe it was 109 or 101, the Forgotten Warriors. But anyway, Dan had been an advocate for veterans long before, I hate to use this word, it was cool, but he was there for many, many years, and he will be greatly missed. Here's Dan Gallagher and Mark and Frank.
I'd also like to personally thank each one of you, especially our veterans and those that didn't come back, as Bernie was mentioning. And we have some of our veterans here today that have received medals and other things that talk about their bravery and what they've done. And we have a Purple Heart veteran here, Roger Shorts. Good friend, and been very helpful for those that are suffering from post-traumatic stress it's really, really hard and difficult, and I appreciate all the family members that struggle with that. You know, I think all of us have been touched by different family members that have had that issue. You know, I lost my brother through that. I'd like to conclude what we're doing here today. I also invite all of you to occasionally come back and stand here. These eagle wings that you see, those are to help you out, help our returning veterans, help the families. That's what that great eagle does for us. It watches over us, it protects us. So this TV liner here that you see in the shape of the eagle wings, that's here for you to help you. Again, I thank you very much. It's been a real privilege and honor and very humbling to have helped put this together for our tribal community. Now we'll have a honor song by the Drum Brothers, and that'll conclude what we do here at the monument. You're welcome to come in for... Oh, one more comment. Oh, yeah. One important thing that I knew I was going to forget something. Most important thing. Ruth, are you available?
She's over here.
Ruth, would you please come forward?
Doing that before that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have Ruth read the names.
I'll do whatever you want me to do, boss.
Of the summer. Ruth, you're supposed to throw a rock at me or something. But Ruth is so instrumental.
I wrote this agenda, but I can't remember if I didn't read it.
She wrote the agenda.
Okay, we will dispatch real quickly with this. As Corky said, there are 98 names that have now been added to the monument, or what's called Eagle Circle Wall of Remembrance. The new groups of names are on the final panels on each side at the top. They are arranged in a random order, but I will read them alphabetically. As I said, these names have been added since 2010 when the monument was first installed. It is my honor, it is my privilege to collect these names on behalf of the tribal members and descendants who so honorably serve our tribe and our country. Kevin Aldrich, Anthony Alexander, Jean Bell, Clay Bird, Eugene Bird, Shane Dominguez Bird, William Bird, Louis Blood Jr., Donald Cheney, Laurel Babe Charette, Kelly Clegg, Carrie Clegg, Merrill Clegg, Carrie Comeslast, Scott Cordier, Nicholas Corville, Wallace Couture, Elmer Delaware, Gerald Delaware, Glenn Delaware, Michelle Delaware, Frank Ducharme, Doran Dumont, Ordway Evans, Fred Fisher, Thomas Funk Jr., Anthony Garcia, Brian Garcia, Jack Garcia, James Garcia, Michael Garcia, George Garcia Jr., Carl Gibo, Bowen Glover, Dale Glover, Frederick Glover, Robert Glover, Carlita Gonzalez, Felix Gonzalez, Pedro Gonzalez, Shelley Grenier, Ronald Hardy, Hank Heaton, Ray Holt, Kevin E. Howlett, Darren Inkashola, Donovan Irwin II, Richard Ivanoff, Timothy Jeffries, Gina Jarrow, Brian Kipp, James Knapp Jr., Leroy Lafreniere, Jacob Lipscomb, Terry Lozo, James MacDonald, Robert Meyer, John Marceau, Court Matt, Eugene M. Matt, Michael L. Matt, James Matt Jr., Magic Dan McDougall, Regina McIntyre, Brandon McKeever, George McQueen, Rick Meitinger, Leo Mitchell, Thomas Mitchell, James Morgan Jr., Ryland Morjo, Terry Morjo, Gerald Noel, Ines Nomi, Joseph Pablo, Dorina Plant, Jonathan Plum, Rick Ramey, Jack Ray, Russell Redicott, J. Mike Reynolds, Charles Richard III, Larry Schwartz, Antoine Miller Siri, Henry Sousley, Wilbur Tiffany, Armel Trahan, Joseph Turnage, Ernest Bill Udall, Fred Van Norman, George Ballin, Philip Ballin, Dennis Wall, Douglas Weber, John P. Wheeler, Roy Wilbur, Charles Zander, and Richard Zander. I invite all of you who are knowledgeable of our tribal members and descendants who have served or are currently serving to contact me to provide names so that we may include them at a future time to equal the circle wall of remembrance. Lem Lem Chpesiat.